All right, guys, so let me talk to you a little bit about the upcoming quiz and the upcoming test over the color of water. Some things that might help you prepare for it. The first most important thing for, of course, the quiz on Monday is to read the last 3 chapters of the book. That does not include anything after the chapter that finishes the story. So I know there's like an epilogue in there and afterwards, things like that are really interesting, because it has James McBride giving you even more information about what happens with this family after the story's over. But you don't have to read it if you don't want to. That's up to you if you want to get that information. The quiz will only be over the last 3 chapters of the story. It will be a multiple choice question quiz. And so make sure you read it. Spark Notes don't seem to be helping everybody to pass the quizzes. Spark Notes are great as something that you look at after you've read the novel that might help you to remember things. So I would go through like any annotated comments that you wrote in the book, if you highlighted certain things throughout the book to help you with the big final test next Wednesday. If you wrote any comments on the sides. But that might be a good time to even look at Spark Notes, because if you look at the Spark Notes for each chapter, or even take the little pseudo quizzes that they put out on Spark Notes, it'll help you remember what you actually read, okay? But reading the book is what's going to help you pass the test next Wednesday. So let's talk about that test again. 2 questions. That's it, 2 questions. Each question is worth 100 points if you get all of them. They're essay questions. You'll have 20 minutes to answer each essay question. So the test will take you about 40 minutes to finish. I cannot extend it past the end of the bell unless you have an IEP or a 504 that allows you to have extended time. And if that's the case, then you can finish it up either then or come in right after school on Wednesday and finish it up. Okay, those are your options. If you can't miss part of the next class to finish your test next Wednesday and you have an IEP or a 504 that does allow you to have extended time on a test, and you've got to get to your next bell, then you can come after school that Wednesday and finish it up. So keep in mind that you need to stay after school that Wednesday if you have to finish up your test because you have an IEP or 504. Okay, just putting that out there. All right, so how to study for a 2-question essay test. Number 1, you have to have read the book, because in those essay questions, it's asking you to then go into the book and find quotes from the story that support your answer to those questions. And then you have to cite those quotes. So you do need to use parenthetical citation to show where you found, what page you found that quote on. If you have an electronic version, I'm not sure if you can bring your book in for that day, because I don't want you cheating and going out on your phone and trying to find answers to the test. I'm going to double check on that. I don't have that answer yet. So if you have a friend who has the book and they're not going to need it Wednesday, ask if you can borrow it if you use the electronic version. But I will get that answer. By Monday, I'll know whether or not you can come in Wednesday with an electronic copy of your book for the test. And if you can't, you will definitely need a hard book. So I would definitely ask around. All the freshmen have read it, and they're not all taking the test on Wednesday if they don't have me for a teacher. Or if they have me for a different bell. You might need to borrow a book that day. But you'll want to find those quotes, and if you've never read the book, it's going to be really hard to find the quotes to use to support your answer on the essay test. So things to think about are some of the themes we talked about as we went through this book, things that Ruth went through with dealing with all the issues in her family, giving up her religion so that she could marry and find true love, and becoming a Christian and becoming infiltrated into the Black culture, how she raised her 12 kids. She raised 12 Black kids as a white mother, how she dealt with the whole race issue that they were constantly asking her about, how she pushed church and she pushed education as 2 of the top things that are important. We talked a lot about that in class, and how she pushed all her children out to fly away and find success and a life for themselves so they could be independent and do something with their lives. The drug addiction thing, how James became totally addicted to drugs for 2 years and alcohol and breaking laws, and how he found his way back, and the Chicken Man inspired him to, get in charge of his own destiny. So being in charge of our own destiny, that was something we talked about in class. So you might be thinking about all these things. And then James finding his family background, how he searched to know more about what his mom went through, what his dad was about, what his stepdad was about, and how family made a difference in who he ended up being as an adult. And the lessons he learned from his family, from his mom, from his stepdad, and from learning about who his real dad was that he never got to meet, unfortunately. And so there's a lot of big themes we talked about. So you know that the essay questions are going to hit on those, and how the book was written. How James McBride actually physically wrote this type of a book, and how it engaged you, and how he just put everything out there, and his mom's perspective and his perspective, and writing it all in first person, all that stuff that we talked about in class are things that you want to think about and go through each chapter and relook at what the chapters were about and how they went together, how shul and school went together, and New Testament and Old Testament went together, how she started the book with I'm dead and what that meant, and then how it foreshadowed things that came up later in her life, all the foreshadowing that we saw, and all the closure that James was able to get for Ruth by the end of the book, by him doing his research on her family, finding people, talking to people, what he found out, how he connected with them, and how he got Ruth to put closure to some of the things that happened to her in her life, even though she was already 50, 60, 70 years old when that closure happened. So there you have it. Those are ideas, things to think about. If you have to replay this video to catch everything I said, to pause, to take notes on some of the things I mentioned, do it. But be ready to do well on that test. 2 questions next Wednesday, 2 essay questions, each of them worth 100 points. And we don't have that many things that have grades attached to them after we finish this book before the end of the semester. So take it seriously. Work on getting ready for this test. Get those last 3 chapters read for Monday's quiz. And then after that, we'll hit strong getting ready for your project presentations that begin November 8th. And I will see you on Monday. Have a very good weekend.